Welcome to the Venice Beach Skate Park. Today we're going to model the big bowl with Rhino 7 and a sprinkle of Grasshopper. We'll use a satellite image for reference and draw curves to create surfaces and form the bowl. So here's the bowl. It consists of a 5-foot deep shallow end, sloping waterfall that goes down to 9 feet deep. We also have a 3-foot pocket, 3-foot deep pocket on the side. Now specifically, we're going to make the big bowl with a network surface, and we'll do a revolved surface for the pocket. We'll then join those with a Boolean operation and smooth out the hard edges with a fillet edge. But first, a little more context. The skate park is actually right down the street from my house, and it's on the sand right in the thick of Venice Beach near the breakwater surf spot. And when you skate there, it always looks crowded, but it's normally just a bunch of tourists hanging on the railing. It feels like you're in a fishbowl. Here's the scene in twin motion that I made. You can see the snake run here. It seems to be in a bunch of ads like this Pacifico one. And of course, here's the big bowl in the back, and that's what we're going to focus on right now. Okay, here we are in the new template file. Our units are in feet. This grid is actually 100 feet by 100 feet. First thing we need to do is bring in our satellite image. So if you go up to your viewport layout tab, there's actually a picture plane icon right here, and we can add our satellite image of the Venice Beach skate park. So there's the bowl that we're going to model, and Google Maps gives us a friendly little legend right here. So we can actually select this and just simply scale the whole image to 10 feet. So I'm going to click on this end of the legend and this end, and then we'll just type in 10 for 10 feet and enter. And now if we run a dimension line on here, look at that, 10 feet. So we know we're set. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is I want to center this bowl that we're going to build into the world origin. So we'll go and click on our move tool. I'm going to select the picture frame and then click in the middle of the bowl here. And now that I can move it wherever I want, I'm just going to type 0 and enter. And now we know that it's centered in the middle of the world. We can take this image and actually kind of make it a little bit transparent, and then we can see our grid through it, and it'll also help us see the curves that we're going to draw to get all the outlines for the bowl. So I'm going to put this in, 75%. That looks pretty good. And then we'll go ahead and we'll put this on the layer background image right here, and now we can just lock it. So we go to our working layer, we're just going to lock our background image. So now we can't select it, and the bowl that we're going to make is in the center of the world here. I'm going to type in grid. If you ever can't find the button for a tool, you can just type it into the prompt, and it'll show up if it's there. So under grid here, I'm going to just turn off all of this for all viewports, and then we can see what we're working on. So we're on the working layer over here, and the first thing that I want to do is draw the outline of this bowl. We know a few things. We know the outline of the bowl. We know that this is a line for the flat bottom, and it's actually a sloped flat bottom. It's a waterfall. So we're going to go from 5 feet all the way down to 9 feet, and then we have a 3-foot deep pocket. Actually, let's go ahead and just put some dots in here. Here's a 9 foot for the deep, and we'll go 5 foot for this shallow end. And then for the pocket here, we've got 3 feet, and we'll put that right there. So we know all of that, and we know that what the coping line is. So let's go ahead and start drawing the coping line. I'm going to start with the big radius bowl in the end here. So we're going to go to circle 3 point, and I'm going to select 3 points on this coping line here. That looks pretty good. Let's do the same thing for this one over here. We get 3 points. 1, 2, we get 3 right about there. Maybe nudge that over just a hair. Okay, cool. Now this last one, let's do the same thing. I'm just going to hit spacebar and that'll activate the tool that we used last, which is circle again. We'll go 1, 2, and that looks pretty close right there. 3. But these could be any sort of random size. So let's just kind of true them up into nice dimensions so that if we run dimensions later, they look good. We're going to go and type in ModifyRadius. And we can see right here, the radius is 15.53. Let's just make that 15.5. All right, this one, hit spacebar to activate the last tool. Look at that, we were pretty close to 11.5. And now this last one, this pocket, we're at 8.38. All right, well, let's see what 8.5 looks like. Well, that could work. Let's see what 8 looks like. It looks like 8 could work as well. It looks like maybe it falls back a bit far. I don't know. Let's go with 8. All right, so I think this pocket we're gonna build separately, and we're gonna add it into this whole volume instead. So let's build this with the deep end and the shallow end as just a single pool. And if we go up to our curve tools, we can use this tool right here, the BlendCrv. All right, select curves to blend. We're going to pick point, so we're going to start kind of right where this peels off of the arc, our coping line. So we're going to start there, and then this kind of peels off right around here. And you see one needs to be flipped. Okay, so there's two different styles. There's curvature and tangency, and you can play around with both of them. Curvature is going to match the curvature that it's coming off of. Tangency is going to make the line come tangent directly off of the point that you've selected. So the more that you work with this, the more you understand the difference between the two. But if we click through these two styles, one of them is going to come pretty close pretty regularly. So we're going to actually select this with the curvature. All right, kind of where it peels off here and here. We are already closer. All right, so let's go with tangent. And if I actually hold down Shift and click on these handles, they're both going to move the same. So we can use that to kind of get us pretty close, like that. And then I think this one needs to just come in on its own. This one comes out. This one comes in. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to say OK. Now we want these curves to form one outline for this bowl so that we can eventually use it on our network surface. So I'm just going to select all of these curves, and then we're going to go up to CurveBoolean. We're going to keep our input, and then we're going to be able to combine regions. In our output, we want curves. And then we just select in the areas, hit spacebar, and that's our new curve. Let's change that onto coping line. So there's our coping line curve. Excellent. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to draw the line for the waterfall. So let's go back to our working here. And we're going to grab our curve tool. And I'm just going to run it right down Main Street. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now that we have this line down the center, I want to turn it into an outline. Type in OFF for offset, and we want to select loose to keep the same number of control points in our curves. And then we're going to go through point, which lets us select how far we want it, and on both sides. So all you have to do is look at the prompt, and it's gonna ask you or have all the options there, and just select what you need. That looks pretty good. And in order to connect these with a nice curve, we can use our BlendCrv tool again. actually want to trim and join. So, quick one. All right, that looks good. And then same thing over here. Flip one, trim and join, still selected. Hold the shift key so we can get some even moving of the handles. All right, so now we have the outline for our flat bottom waterfall. We have our coping line. We can actually take this one and we'll put that on our curve waterfall. And then, the next thing that we want to do is we want to show how this waterfall actually changes from 5 feet deep to 9 feet deep. So if we had a curve, for example, let's just isolate this, type in isolate. So let's imagine this curve as the coping line, right? And I'll just duplicate it 9 feet down. There's our, the bottommost part of the pool. If we take that coping line, we're just going to duplicate it again 5 feet down. That's the height of the shallow end. So we actually want a curve that starts in the shallow end and it slowly tapers down. Well, in order to do that, we can take this curve and we can change the degree of it. Change it to a 5 degree. And now we have 6 points on it. We can select these first 3. And we can move them down to that 9-foot mark. So now you see we have the profile of that waterfall from the shallow end to the deep end. Let's show everything again. So now, let me turn off this background image. Now we have from the top this, this line that's curved, and from the side we have this nice slope for the waterfall. There's a tool in Rhino just for combining these two, which is what we need. If we go to curve and go down to curve from 2 views, and that is actually going to combine both of those curves. So now we have a curve that starts in that shallow end and slopes all the way down. All right, pretty cool. Okay, so we're going to put that onto our waterfall layer as well. And then let's go ahead and turn this off. So next thing I'd like to do is add some depth to this. So we're going to pull a line from both sides of this, and let's say, I don't know, to about 5 feet there. Let's do the same thing, both sides, 5 feet. All right, cool. Now, what I want to do is I want to make a sweep using these profiles. When we do this sweep, let's turn on history here. Then we'll go to sweep one rail. Here's our rail. Here's our profiles. Excellent. Looks really good. I kind of want to tighten this surface up. I'm going to trim it right here, but I want to tighten this surface up first. So since we have history turned on, I can actually change the scale of these. I'll make it just a little bit tighter. We'll select the curve over here. Again, scale one direction. And maybe right there. Looks nice. I'll just leave those ends as is. Now we'll select that again and we'll trim it. Now once you trim, that breaks the history. So we wouldn't be able to change the surface again. But until you trim it, you can adjust these rails, do whatever you need. Now that we're done with these and we've got history broken, I'm just to take those and put them back on the hidden working layer there. We can probably put this outline on that hidden working layer as well. So what's next? right? We have this coping outline and this flat bottom. Well, there's a couple things that we could do from here. There's actually a couple different strategies, but the best way is going to be to have a network surface, which means that we're going to need curves that define the transitions in the shallow end and maybe some in the midpoints here and in the deep end. So how can we do that? Well, you could always make a plane, a vertical plane. We could start down here on the deep end and then turn on project. Go to the top here, find a spot. You know, now that we have that plane, it'd be easy to draw a curve with 3 points. Okay, and that gives us one profile, but it sounds like a pain to do through this whole bowl. So what I did was instead is I wrote a Grasshopper script for just this situation. It asks for 2 inputs. It's going to ask for the coping line, and then it's going to ask for lines that are perpendicular to the waterfall and the coping line. So if we go up to transform and orient on curve, I'm going to orient this curve that I just drew onto here. And then we'll just add some of these spokes all the way around, you know, where we think that Rhino may need a little bit of help. So maybe something like that. And then the next thing that we need to do is open up our Grasshopper definition. So here is what it is. We have 2 different inputs, and what you see here is these are for the Grasshopper player. We can make this just call it up within Rhino, but I wanted to show you how it works. So lines that are perpendicular to the waterfall, we're going to set multiple curves here, all of these ones. And then our coping line, we're going to set 1 curve, and it's that one. And then let's see what it's doing. Look at that. It's actually drawing all of those curves that we need. So if we go here to our final output and we bake this, let's bake it to curve transitions. Okay. And we'll just hide what Rhino did there. Or sorry, what Grasshopper did. And now you can see we have, turn off these spokes also. We have our bowl with all these transition curves. We'll make sure that history is turned on. And then we'll go to our surface tools and select network surface and select the curves in the network. Let's just select everything. So right away it looks pretty nice. Turn on our shading, and you can see it's done a pretty darn good job of making this surface. Furthermore, it's really clean if you look at the control points, the structure of it. If you try to do this with a sweep 2 rail, I'm telling you it's going to be just messy looking, and your surface isn't going to be as good. We can actually look at this surface under the surface tools, turn on our zebra analysis, and it's just like looks great all the way around. And again, if you try to do this with some of the other techniques, it's just not as clean as network surface. But also what's great about this with the history turned on now is we can select any of these input curves, and if we wanted to mellow out that transition, it'd be simply moving this input curve right here. We can move it in. See, and that just doesn't take us to vert anymore. And I know what you're saying, you know, if you're a skate park builder, you're like, but Jim, that's not a true radius now. It's some sort of weird elliptical. Like, okay, let's make this a true radius, if we're dealing with like say a 9-foot radius that's cut at 5 feet, we're going to select just this curve right here, and then we're going to go to our construction planes and do a construction plane from object. I turn on the grid, you can see now our construction plane is right there. So we'll go to wireframe, we're going to isolate that curve, and then type in plan, and that's going to give us a plan view on our construction plane. So here's our current curve. I can tell that that is definitely not a continuous radius, right? So if we wanted to do a 9-foot, right, we're going to do a 2-point circle, bring it up 18 feet, and then this is the actual radius that we want to match. So let's go ahead and move this from the top back because our coping line can't change, right? And now we just need to match up this transition to this one right here. So I'm going to lock that one, and let's try to true this up. Now sometimes you don't even have to, oops, you got to remain tangent at the bottom. Sometimes you don't have to rebuild your curve like this one. I mean, I would take that, that's super clean. But if that bothered you right there, you could easily just, go up to your curve tools. We can change the degree on this curve. It's currently a 2 degree. Let's change it to a 3 degree. And now I can bring this extra curve back a little bit. And I can bring this one maybe up a hair. Yeah, so you can see you can dial it in. You could change the degree more if you wanted to get more control over the curve. But I really thought it worked great with just that first one. If we go back to perspective here, to get out of your plan mode, you actually have to go back to set view and perspective. That gets you out of there. Turn off the grid. But now, you can see like we just trued up that transition. Like there you go. So what is the next step? Well, the next step is going to be to model the side pocket and merge the volume with the large pool. I'm going to turn off the surfaces here. So let's use a lot of the same techniques that we used previously to build this side pocket right here. The first thing that I'm going to want to do is create a line for the flat bottom. And I can see right here, it's about where the transition comes down. So I'm going to type in offset and do loose. That's going to preserve the number of control points, just keeps it cleaner. And then through point. And somewhere right around here looks pretty good. And then let's move that down 3 feet because we know that that's going to be the depth of the pocket right there. Then we'll go and do what we did before. We're going to create the spokes. We'll orient it using transform over here. Now we can go back and we can run our Grasshopper script again. We'll select this line. And then this line for our coping. Right there, you can see we have our transition line. So let's go ahead and bake that. We'll put it on curve transition layer. Okay. You can hide Grasshopper. Now you can see we have our coping line and our transition for the pocket. Next, I'd like to revolve this curve around the center point of this circle. So let's select the curve. I'm going to make sure that history is turned on. And then I'll go to my surface tools and I'll click on revolve. Or on the center point of this circle from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. And that gives us our pocket. But I know that this is a shallow pocket and it won't be going up to vertical like that. So since we have history turned on, it's quite easy to adjust that control point and bring it in. You see that's mellowed our transition up to the coping line. So the next thing I want to do is I actually want to intersect this volume with this volume. So let's just give it some flat bottom quickly by capping it. I'll delete the top face so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to select both of the volumes, and I'm going to go to our solid tools and Boolean union. And that's going to break the history, but that's okay. We're done with the moving around the transition. Let's turn off the curves so we can see what we've got. And we have our pocket unified with the large pool. But in real life, we would never have a hard edge like this on that seam. Instead, we would have a nice waterfall and a rollover. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to our solid tools here, and we'll click on FilletEdge, and we'll select these edges. And 6 foot is probably a pretty good radius. Look at that. Did a nice job. But let's see how it looks compared to the satellite image. It's pretty close. I think we probably could have made the bowl slightly bigger in the end, but for what we're doing right here, I'm pretty happy with it. So the next thing we can do is we can actually trim out the top of this satellite image. And then let's go one step further and we'll select the satellite image. Let's turn off that transparency. And now we can start seeing the bowl in context with the rest of the park. But what really gives a drawing scale is the details. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a coping line and a tile line, and I think we'll also add a drain plate over here. So let's select the volume and create a new coping line first. So I'm just going to duplicate the border, and then that gives us our new coping line right there. And now if I go to the top view, I'm going to go ahead and insert the coping line that I drew before. If we zoom in, you can see here's our new coping profile. Let's get the bull nose and our grout line, and that's where we're going to orient it from. So we'll go to Transform, OrientOnCrv, select the bottom of this grout line, and then we'll select our coping line right here. If you zoom in, you can see it's oriented correctly on here. And now we should be able to sweep that. So I'm going to go and just make this surface coping layer active. We'll select our coping line, and we'll go to our surface tools, sweep one, and select our profile. And that just immensely made it, more correctly scaled, having that. Let's go one step further, and let's add a tile line. So if we were to just draw a line, and then go to our front view, let's move this line down a half a foot, which is 6 inches. And that's pretty appropriate for a tile line. And we'll just select our volume here, type in split, and select the line we just drew as our cutting object. Now we can just select this whole object right there. We'll just put that on to the tile line. Let's turn off some of these curves so we can see it a little bit better. So there you go. We've got the pool, tiles, pool coping. Let's just add a drain plate now. We'll draw a circle in the center here. Let's go diameter 9-inch. And then the same thing, we're going to select this object and we're going to split it with this circle. And let's just put this on the tile end so we can see it as a different color. Get rid of that circle. And there you go. That's a pretty nice model right there. So is that it? Well, it depends on how far you want to take the model. I mean, you can obviously go and texture it, put it in context of wherever the location that it's at, like here. Take it as far as you'd like to go, or as far as the job needs. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.